United Lutheran Seminary presents the Seminary Explores podcast, conversations on faith, art, people, politics, theology, life, and more, with voices from around the corner and around the globe.
Welcome to the Seminary Explores. My name is Nelson Stropit, and today my guest is Ms. Victoria Jesswein, who is the Associate Archivist at United Lutheran Seminary. Welcome to the Seminary Explores.
Thank you for having me.
When I think about an archivist, in my mind, I know it's not true, but in my mind, the image of a person or persons working in a little lit and dusty small room in a corner of a library building in the basement. And so my question to you is, what is an archivist?
Well, you're not too far wrong, because most institutions do tend to put their archives in the basement and hidden away somewhere. And it can be dark because we want to avoid bleaching. I object to the dust, though. We always have a clean archive. But in short, an archivist is someone who collects and assesses records for their historical value, who stores them in the best possible housing and environments to preserve those documents long term, and then who arranges the collections logically so that users can locate them.
Oh, okay. How did your interest in this field begin, or how did it develop?
Well, since childhood, I wanted to be a librarian. Originally a school librarian, and that's what I set out to do when I was first in college. And in Texas, which is where I was living at the time, you had to be a school librarian, you had to be in the classroom for 3 years before you transitioned. So I started doing student teaching and discovered I actually don't like children. So that wasn't going to be for me. But then I got an internship at the Dolph Briscoe Center for American History, which is under the University of Texas umbrella. It's a museum and archive on campus there, and I was doing originally scanning, and then as I got more into it, some more cataloging projects there, and fell in love with archives and decided to take that route.
Oh, okay. You had this opportunity to work in the archives. How did you prepare yourself professionally?
So I went to University of Liverpool in England for my master's degree. Most librarians will have a master's level degree. In this country, that's normally a Master of Library Science or a Master of Library and Information Science,
right?
With a specialization in archives. But I went abroad specifically to study archives, so my degree is a Master of Archives and Records Management. So it's just different letters after my name.
Okay.
But I had an internship there. I was at the University of Oxford for a few weeks, mostly cataloging the Dennis Hills papers. So those were really interesting. He was a British lecturer. I think he was at a university there, and an author. Lived in Uganda and wrote some seditious things about Idi Amin, and was sentenced to death for treason or sedition. And he was severely criticized by the British public because to save his life, both the British Prime Minister and the Queen had to apologize on behalf of him to get him out of there. So he's an interesting character.
Indeed. Oh, okay. And when you returned to the United States, where did you begin?
Well, it was middle of the COVID pandemic. I moved back in with mom and dad. Shortly after that, I was hired at the local university where my father also teaches as a reference librarian. And I was there about 6 months before I got the job here and moved to Gettysburg.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Well, you mentioned Gettysburg, and this is the 200th anniversary of the institution. And what do you feel helps tell the story of this seminary from your view as an archivist?
We have so many great things here. I pulled some certain objects and papers out for some celebrations a couple weeks ago. Things like the bulletins from previous celebratory anniversary events and worship services. So we sort of build on the 200th from things they did at the 150th, the 175th, even the 50th. There's an interesting poem written by Matthias Scheele called the Gettysburgiad.
Oh, okay. Huh.
But things like the Samuel Simon Schmucker papers, I pulled a lot of those out. People have never seen his handwriting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we've seen publications of his book, but not his handwriting. Oh, okay.
And one of my favorite objects is a wardrobe that was in one of the dorm rooms.
A wardrobe?
Yeah, it was just some furniture that was in that dorm room. And starting in, I think, about 1916, each of the students that stayed in that room signed the year that they lived there. So we've got like 30 years of who was in the same room, or at least using the same wardrobe.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Oh, interesting. And does that... and what types of things might you be adding, during this year, this centennial celebration?
I don't know if anything specific, but in general, what I want to grow our collection of archives is particularly personal papers from alumni or even former professors or clergy in the area that tell a unique story that we don't have represented already. So, for example, we don't need any more, mid-century white male sermon collections. We got tons of those.
Okay.
But people doing more unique ministry, collections from people of color, collections from women. For example, we only have one manuscript from a female alumnus of this institution.
Really? Now that surprises me.
Yeah, it's an area I would love to see grow because we've had so many great alumni come out since then.
Some names are coming through my mind as you speak. Yeah, so those alumni who are listening to this podcast, contact Victoria and tell her your story and what you have to contribute to the seminary or ULS. Yeah. And you mentioned, Schmucker, 19th century, etc. How do you preserve these books and manuscripts from the early 19th century and the collection in general? How do you go about doing that so that it stays as long as possible?
The good thing about what we have here is it's mostly paper, and paper is fairly stable. I mean, we've got books and documents that are hundreds of years old, and they're still perfectly readable and usable. But the main preservation efforts we use here are the same as they'd be in any archive. We store items in acid-free folders and acid-free boxes. Acidic material sort of bleaches or leaves a stain on items, so we keep it acid-free, especially with things like inks. Sometimes if you get an old book that has a signature in it, you'll sometimes see it's like burned through, and that's the acid in that ink.
Oh, okay.
And then for things that are degrading for whatever reason, we'll take a scan, some sort of digital surrogate, so that we have that preserved. And then if it's being used for research, we can pull out the digital version for researchers and not have to pull out the original so often.
Exactly, right. Yeah, for damage. We mentioned 19th century, but are there books and manuscripts that we have in the archives prior to the 19th century?
Absolutely. I mean, most of our collection is probably Victorian and newer, but we've got a pretty decent selection of sort of 1700s and older books in our vault. Mostly came from donations from various alumni and friends of the seminary. Jeremiah Zimmerman is a huge name.
Okay,
I know a lot of our really old books. We have about 10 incunabula. That's a book that's printed before 1500. So that's a special category of book because there weren't a lot printed before that time. And these are printed on paper.
Right.
Occasionally you get them printed on vellum, but that's less common. And we have quite a few old Bibles, including some rarer translations.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I'm just, and these are available to researchers.
Absolutely, yeah. Anything in the building we can pull out. Not everything can be checked out and circulate.
Oh,
but
right. Indeed. And I think you mentioned, what we have, and is there uniqueness to this these archives, do you think?
Well, the great thing about archives is that they're all unique, and that's what sets them apart from library materials. Any library could have a same copy of a book, but we have a lot of great things. We've got the institutional records of ULS and its predecessors, extensive personal papers and manuscripts from alumni and former faculty and local Lutheran leaders, theologians, missionaries. That's the bit I'd like to make more diverse.
Right.
But we're also the repository for Region 8 of the ELCA, so sort of the central Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, D.C. area. And that's a very historically very Lutheran heavy.
Right.
So we have a lot of sort of parish registers and other church records. So a great resource for genealogical research and church history in general. But that's really valuable because some of those are, pre-revolution because there are so many Lutherans in this area.
Okay, I just did not think about that. I always think of the 19th century, but we go back many years prior.
Yeah, I think the oldest the oldest parish register we have in this collection is from 1730.
Oh, okay. How do you determine the additions to the archives? And there might be, as you said, you do have records, some letters, etc. How do you make decisions and to determine what will be added?
That's a great question because as much as I would like to accept everything, it takes up space, and we don't have space. So when I'm looking for new additions to the archives, I'm usually looking for something that tells the story of ULS in some way. And that is different than what we already have.
You have to be quite astute as to what we have in the collection, to determine.
Yeah, you do have to sort of know what we have and also almost predict what research interests are going to be like in the future. Because what is common knowledge now, we're not looking into. But if I'm thinking, 100 years from now, what is a researcher going to be coming to this archive for? And I want to make sure those things are preserved now.
What challenges do you see for the archivist as we engage in technology? Technology is all around us, and I think some people are concerned that with books, we can save, we can build a collection. How do we build a collection in terms of the technology that we see now and might be coming in the future in terms of working in the archives?
Yeah, it's probably the biggest challenge in the field of archival science in general right now is dealing with what we call born digital records.
What are those, please?
So anything that you make on a computer and you never print it out. So your emails, your Word documents, photos you take with your phone. These are things, they're digital from the point of creation as opposed to things that we are digitizing.
Has anyone come up with some ways to preserve or to get at those materials?
There are programs designed to help record that, and sort of as you get different versions of things, you have version control, so you always have the most recent version, or you can see that edits have been made. A lot of that, we don't have that kind of level of technology at ULS, so we're very in the beginning stages of how do we preserve these things. When we had Dean Sebastian stepped down as dean, and we got his papers. Most of those are digital, so that's a big project right now, is how to get them off of his computer, how to sift through the emails that need to be saved versus the ones that don't.
Now, I'm of the age where when we talked about computers and technology, we thought, well, we're going into a paperless society. What I hear you saying is that's very difficult in terms of preserving the past.
It is. I'd much prefer dealing with physical records, and if you want to start printing everything off and just saving it in folders, that will make my job easier.
Right.
But it's a change we have to deal with as we move forward.
Yeah, indeed. It's amazing what we can get from the computer and the technology, but at the same time, if one is for the historical record, it becomes more difficult.
Yeah, I can't even imagine doing research with entirely born digital records, but at some point that's what people are going to be doing.
I shudder to to hear that. I really do. I really do. With all that, the changes with technology, but also changes in the field and how you do your work, how do you stay current in your field?
I'm involved in a few professional organizations. ATLA, the American Theological Library Association, is the big national group of theological libraries and archives. One of my favorite conferences to go to as well. I presented at that conference as well. I'm also involved with this is a mouthful, the Southeastern Pennsylvania Theological Library Association, or SEPTLA for short.
Okay.
And those are both great spaces to network, to share knowledge and resources with my colleagues from other similar institutions, and participate in continuing education. And I love continuing education. I'll do any class that is helpful to my job at any time. I love that. Last summer, I had the privilege of taking a course in the German Kurzschrift. This is a different kind of cursive handwriting that was used in German, sort of 16th to early 20th centuries. It's just the way that letters are formed are totally unlike what we're used to in English handwriting. So I did a 2-week intensive course at the Moravian Archives in Bethlehem.
Oh, yeah.
Learning how to read this old handwriting. It's what a lot of, the Schmucker papers, when he's writing in German, he uses that script. A lot of our old parish registers are in that script. We have anything, pre-1940 that's written in German is going to be in Kurzschrift.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay. Are there some projects that you're working on now at ULS that you might want to share with us?
Most of my projects right now are actually pretty boring. But I would say what I'm trying to do is we have a lot of old collections that have been cataloged. We know what we have. We have a finding aid on paper for them. But they're not really discoverable unless you come into the building because they don't have a way to search online. Okay. So I'm doing some double checking that what the finding aid says we have is actually on the shelf, going through things that we may not need anymore, making sure things are housed correctly, and then the big thing is putting all of that into a digital catalog so that it can be searched from anywhere in the world.
Oh, okay. You mentioned German, the German books, etc. Is there an international component to what we have here? Any other international works in our archives? Other languages?
German's the big one. Some of our missionary collections, the General Synod was involved a lot in India, specifically the Telugu speaking part of India, so we have a lot of things in that language. We have some interesting things like a catechism translated into Lenni Lenape, the language of the Delaware people.
Wow.
But German's the big one, Latin probably next, and then some French and Spanish beyond that.
Indeed. As you reflect on your work, what are your priorities now?
I would like to see the archives used more by students, more by everyone, but especially by students. I think there's huge potential to use the materials we have in a lot of the courses that are taught at the seminary.
Okay.
And there's ways we can incorporate them, some more obvious than others. So if it's a history course, of course you can see how that would.
Exactly.
But I think there's potential for more than that. We have a huge Lutheran periodical collection, probably the biggest in the country in terms of journals and newspapers from Lutheran bodies. And that's a huge resource for social issues and liturgical changes, anything like that. There's just a lot that has never been explored that I think there's potential to find new stories, and I'd love to see is particularly student use.
Good. That's good to hear. That is good to hear, and might excite some students into becoming archivists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess one of the last questions I have for you is, how do you encourage people who might consider becoming an archivist? What might you recommend? And
I would say it's a very competitive field, library science in general. Right now, it's hard to get a full-time job in library science. I don't want to discourage people from trying, but I would say to specialize. Try to take, don't just be as broad as possible. Try to make yourself interesting to people hiring you because you have a special skill, be that paleography or the other end if you're really good in digital archives. And probably research would go along with that. So if you're interested in, for example, theological education, maybe you do some theological work before you do your master's in library science.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Well, the word is out now. And so those of you who might be interested in this type of work, contact Victoria Jesswein, and she will certainly guide you along the way. I want to thank you for sharing your work and what we have here at United Lutheran Seminary.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. My guest today has been Victoria Jesswein, who is the Associate Archivist at United Lutheran Seminary. For the Seminary Explorers, this is Nelson Strobert. Have a good day.
You have been listening to The Seminary Explorers, a production of United Lutheran Seminary with campuses in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We invite you to visit our website at unitedlutheranseminary.edu. All opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of United Lutheran Seminary or the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.